Shelton was the father-in-law to GRRA member Philip Rayford. A contribution has been made to GRRF in memory of each family member. Please keep these members and their families in your thoughts and prayers.
Is that all, Mary Beth?
As far as I know.
Okay. Thank you very much. So, and thanks to all in the Rockingham group. All right, so let's get started. Let me tell you a little bit about, as I say, Charlie Moody. We are pleased to have her with us today as our guest speaker. Ms. Moody is legal counsel and assistant director of the Regulatory Affairs Division of the North Carolina Real Estate Commission. Now, we're not going to hold these two things against her, a native of New York, but we definitely won't hold this even though we think about it, and a graduate of Duke University with a degree in public policy. But then she redeemed herself because she is a graduate of the University of North Carolina School of Law in Chapel Hill, receiving her JD degree in 1998. Following graduation from law school, she entered private practice with a law firm in Atlanta where she specialized in general business litigation. She finally came home to North Carolina in 2003, and in February 2006, she joined the commissioner's legal staff. Charlie's duties involve handling consumer complaints, the prosecution and settlement of disciplinary cases, and oversight of the timeshare registration program. So please join me into welcoming the University of North Carolina graduate, Ms. Charlie Moody. Thank you so much. And we're excited to hear from you.
Thank you, Ray. And yes, I have split loyalties, but I will admit Duke wins in my heart, but it's all blue, right? So thank you everyone for inviting me. And yes, it's Charlie. I can always tell when someone's a friend because they call me Charlie. If they call me Charlene, I kind of, I look over my shoulder. I was invited to talk about COVID-19, give some updates on that. And I thought I'd just start with a bit of a background. So the commission has 9 members. 2 members must be involved, not be involved directly or indirectly in the real estate or appraisal fields. And so our newest member is one of our public members, Mary Wills Bodie. She's an attorney in Raleigh, and she had the unfortunate, I think, experience of having her first meeting be March 18th. So she came in and was faced immediately with the COVID crisis and has worked through that as a newbie commission member. The commission has a staff of about 54 people. And one of our newest folks is Dee Bigelow, who I believe is on the call right now. She's one of our information officers. She started at the end of September, and she's actually from the Greensboro area. So Dee, thanks for attending. And she's somebody who started during COVID. So she started work remotely and hasn't, had the crowd of people around her. The mission of the commission is to protect the public interest in real estate brokerage transactions. And we try to effectively and efficiently administer commission programs and operations. So in doing that, we have the 3 main divisions: licensing, education, and regulatory or legal, as it's also known. And all of these divisions have been affected by COVID in what we're doing. So in licensing, we, as of July 1st, 2020, had 105,760 brokers or firms that had renewed or reinstated that license. And we had to manage all of that. And of those 105,000, 69 plus thousand were active full brokers, and about 13,000 were firms. Education division is involved in pre-licensing, post-licensing, textbooks, study guides, license exam program, instructor training, approval of continuing education providers, the broker in charge course, the update course, the trust account course, along with regulatory affairs, and the issues and answers course, along with regulatory affairs. So all of these had to continue during the pandemic. We couldn't, just put any of these to the side. And as for regulatory affairs, we have to conduct inquiries and investigations of complaints. We examine trust accounts. We prosecute charges against licensees. We provide legal counsel to the commission. We have to coordinate rulemaking. We register and regulate timeshare projects. We teach, or at least we taught, the trust account course. That was a live in-person course taught by one of our auditor investigators. I say taught because we actually transitioned that course this summer to an online only and not just synchronous. This was an online course that is self-directed, so you can do it at 9 p.m. If you want to learn about trust accounts at 9 p.m. for some reason, you can do that. We also teach the issues and answers course. So this was a live course taught by, it's either going to be an attorney, one of our auditor investigators, one of our consumer protection officers, or an information officer. So that's another live course taught. And we provide information to licensees and consumers. We have 2 information officers who spend all day on the phone talking to anyone who calls or answering questions via email. So all of that had to transition eventually to remote work. So back to the beginning, March 2020, when COVID came to North Carolina. Now, March 3rd was the first case that someone who had traveled to Washington State came back. Then March 10th, Governor Cooper issued his first executive order declaring a state of emergency. Colleges started to suspend in-person classes. On a personal note, I had a trip planned to see my senior at Smith in Massachusetts. She was doing her final a cappella performance, and we had to cancel that trip. And she came home, and we watched her graduation on video on the TV. So when all of this started happening, the commission started getting calls from brokers and from students, emails, etc. And they were all concerned about having to go to class. They had pre-licensing classes, post-licensing classes, CE courses, and they wanted the commission to do something. So on March 13, our executive director issued an advisory where we recommended the suspension of in-person classes at least through April 30th. And along with that, the commission canceled its educators conference that we have annually. It's a 2-day class that normally has about 160 attendees. So that was canceled. March 14th, the next day, Governor Cooper issued an order prohibiting gatherings of 100 or more people, and that also encouraged social distancing. At its March 18th meeting, the commission approved emergency rulemaking to address this crisis and continuing education issues. Effective March 23rd, our building was closed to the public, and Executive Director Miriam Baer worked closely with senior staff to transition the majority of our staff to remote work from home. Included in that is all North Carolina Real Estate Commission taught classes at that time, trust account course, issues and answers, broker and charge courses, that all transitioned to online only. Along with this, on March 20th, the North Carolina Association of Realtors issued its COVID-19 addendum to the standard form contract, and that was to address possible delays in closing due to an inability to close, inability to get a loan, because of course, at this point, nobody knew what was going to be happening with brokerage itself. We, weren't sure whether it was going to be a standstill. That was the fear, that it was going to be a standstill. Finally, March 27th, Governor Cooper issued the statewide stay-at-home order, which went into effect 5 p.m. on March 30th. Then in April, the commission held its meeting via Zoom. This was actually the second ever online commission meeting. The first was held in December 2018, and it was an experiment to see if it could be done. Luckily, it could be, and with every meeting, we've gained experience because every commission meeting since April has been online via Zoom. The commission members were at home or at their offices. Limited staff were in the commission meeting room. Since that time, now staff has been at home as well, just with each on their individual monitors. It's all streamed live to the public. We had an online rulemaking hearing at that time as well, and there were 82 guests in attendance online. This was a rulemaking hearing to discuss emergency rulemaking, temporary rulemaking, and our normal rulemaking. I think we had that crowd because our rulemaking was of particular interest to educators. Since then, we've had probably around 38 guests online watching our stream. Normally, we'd have about 5, maybe 10 people at a live meeting. So I think everyone's sort of taken the opportunity to see what a meeting is like. The commission has made the decision at each meeting whether to meet in person at the next meeting. But I predict we will continue meeting via Zoom through at least, I'd say February, March. The meeting themselves have changed because each member must now identify themselves and vote individually. When you're in a live meeting, you can say, everyone say aye, anyone opposed, and it moves fast. Now it's a little slower because we have to have individual identification and voting. So another important issue was no disciplinary hearings were held from March through August because legislation was enacted that allowed remote hearings, but we have not received consent, and the legislation requires consent from both parties for the remote hearing. We haven't had consent, so we were unable to have any hearings where the commission members were not present. We have now had in August and September some live hearings. Instead of our full 9 panel, we have had a panel of 6, and we've practiced social distancing because in our room, in our commission meeting room, we could do that. We've put up plexiglass panels in between our court reporter and our witness, plexiglass panels between the attorneys, and we've limited access. So it's streamed. So because our hearings are public, so it's streamed so that the public can have access, but we've practiced social distancing for those meetings, for those hearings that we've held since then. Broker applications were down substantially, of course, in part due to the inability to take the exam. The testing center closed down in March. In mid-April, they opened one site, and that was in Winston-Salem, in fact. And so they were practicing social distancing. One site in North Carolina, therefore no exams, few exams, and so that was a slowdown. By April 15th, we're mostly working from home at the commission. And of course, that meant there were lots of expenditures for increased purchasing for things like laptops, cell phones, Zoom accounts, all of that required expenditures. I'm sorry, I hear the sound is low. Let me see if that helps. I tried to turn up my sound. I'll speak louder. I can speak loud. But I think we have had a successful transition. We are meeting via Zoom a lot to make sure that we are moving forward with our mission, that we are conducting our business, our rulemaking. Of course, March, April 2020, there was so much uncertainty, again, as to what would happen in the real estate market. In April, the North Carolina Realtors released the on-site preview addendum, which was going to allow showings unlimited circumstances upon agreement. And then, of course, there was the essential services debate where some counties did not include real estate brokerage as an essential service, but finally Governor Cooper's order did specifically state that real estate brokerage was an essential service, and brokerage sales transactions could go on. And of course they did, which was great. Going back to just the discussion of rulemaking, in March, we had that emergency rulemaking to allow for the automatic 90-day extension of time to complete CE and post-licensing through September 30th. We suspended in-person courses through April 30th and then through June 30th. And we also allowed synchronous distance learning like Zoom courses. So we allowed all of that. We made sure that we were informing folks of this extension. We kept discussing whether it was sufficient, whether we needed to make it longer, but we sent out emails, we included it in the bulletins. We tracked our renewals, and as we were noting with each meeting, our renewals were on par, if not better than previous years. So we thought people were still sticking with brokerage. We're still behind with our broker applications, but finally in May, our testing provider opened all of the testing sites, still with social distancing protocols in place, but renewals happened. Folks were sticking with brokerage. We sent out emails to brokers to remind them about CE. We added notifications to the bulletin and the website. So that's my reminder. Visit our website often. You can sign up for rule change notifications. The bulletin is online now. If you want to see old ones, you can read them there. We normally get the calls. People like Dee Bigelow, they get the calls from our licensees. This time we called you. In September, staff, including myself, in every division, we called brokers in charge who had not completed CE to remind them of the deadline and what course they were missing. Because of course, if a broker in charge goes down, then the firm goes down, then the brokers who are affiliated go down. So at our October meeting, we learned that we actually had fewer folks go down this year than had gone down in 2019. So we're gonna take that as a success. Brokers in charge took their courses for the most part. That's a reminder though, I think the COVID taught us, get your CE done as soon as you can so that you don't run into this issue. Hopefully this is never going to be an issue again, but get your CE done as soon as possible so that there's not an emergency in the future. Okay, back to brokerage during a pandemic. Summer, fall 2020, we had big issues during the pandemic revolving around vacation rentals because some counties closed their borders to visitors. And the question is, what happens to vacation rentals when the property is inaccessible? What happens to vacation rentals when the tenant can't get there due to closures at their border? Different answers for those. We had questions around showings when a property is occupied by a high-risk person or by a person who has tested positive. We had disclosure issues regarding that, or when a tenant in a property might have tested positive. But what we found was, of course, as you know, sales, rentals, vacations were nonstop. Nothing stopped. Demand outpaced supply, and it was completely unexpected, I think, for anyone. The demand for single family residences just spiked because if everyone's staying home, they want more room. They want a place to stay. So we, as we're dealing with all of that. Complaints go up when brokerage goes up. When business is booming, issues come up. So our 2020 complaints, business was already moving. And then with COVID, it increased. So we had averaged about 1,800 complaints a year in 2019. We were up to about 2,200 in 2020. We'll see where 2021 comes out. What are we seeing though? A crowded market means more unhappy buyers. What we've seen with COVID are that a rush to put things under contract means that there are more claims about failing to disclose material facts, because people are now putting things under contract based on videos, based on a broker walking around with a camera, and then it doesn't look the same on the video, or there's something that they didn't think about. So we see that. We see lots more stress. Everyone's stressed out. So what happens with stress? Confrontation, some lack of professionalism. That's what we're seeing. As for COVID itself and COVID showings, follow a seller's directives. Pay attention. If the seller wants you to mask up, glove up, mask up, glove up. Assume there's a danger. That's what I keep telling people. When there's a pandemic and there's things you can protect your client by doing, do those things. We've also got issues with evictions and, moratoria. So that's always a question. Tenants are concerned about showings as well. So property managers or listing agents doing what they can to protect both the tenant and any buyers. That's a big issue for us right now. We are handling it. I think our brokers are handling it. But we don't know what's going to happen in future. I would just remind folks to protect themselves, protect your clients, follow your brokerage activities in a professional manner. And I would also say, since now we're working so much remotely and so much not in person, when you're texting, when you're doing it by phone call, going through documents more slowly, making sure you're looking at every document and at every spot on that document so that you're not missing things because you're not right together, being able to look at things together. That would be something that I would also remind folks to do. Maybe slow down a bit. I know it's crazy. I know there's 40 showings a day, but you do have to take some time to make sure you are dotting your I's, crossing your T's. That is my presentation. So I'm happy to answer some questions.
Great. Thank you. Well, since I'm a political nerd and I love coming to see y'all, I always try and make sure everyone understands that the commission and the world of the brown envelope, that y'all are here to help. And people don't always realize, they think you're there to punish. And I'm like, no, they're there to help. If, what I've learned from Seth and from others, and as I call Mama Bear, you're there to teach people, and, train them to be consistent. And the ones that are consistently right or wrong, it's easy to fix. Consistency. And it's, from anyone rushing, it's not. So there are a couple questions. So if you don't mind, I'm going to ask one, or a couple, and I see one in chat. So what we're having right now is outrageous shortage. So we're getting multiple offers through the commission. What is the best way to handle multiple offers?
So I'd say the first issue we always see is a buyer not trusting that an offer has been presented to the seller client. So I would advise all listing brokers to make sure that they document in however they want to, whether it be, saving those emails or saving those texts or making the notes. They document that they have presented offers. And, it's of course up to a seller how they want to proceed, but communication is important. So if you communicate to a buyer agent, got multiple offers, the seller is going through them, you know, not making any promises. There's not one way, because every seller is different and every seller wants different things. So some sellers are happy to do highest and best and let's meet at X o'clock and go through every single one. Some sellers like the first one they see, you know, so there's not one way to do it, but I would just advise that honest communication is key.
Wonderful. And be consistent. All right, this is going to be a 3-part between Phyllis, Patrice, and myself. First, we're going to start out how to handle a client with COVID-19 in a seller's home and from the buyer side as well. And then I'm going to add to it with their questions.
Okay, so sorry about that. My phone's going off.
That's all right. That's an RPAC donation. Don't worry about it.
So the seller or someone in the seller's house has tested positive. You know, I can't say that not disclosing is a violation, because, you know, everything's a case by case. I would advise, though, when in doubt, disclose.
But is it a material fact at this moment?
That's the thing. I can't say that it is a material fact. I would say that every buyer, every seller should assume that everyone's got COVID. You know what I mean? It's that risk. And that's why we are advised to wear masks when going out in public, because the assumption should be that someone has COVID. I think you should discuss with your seller, you know, what are their plans, because it also depends on timing. Is this, you know, it's under contract? Is this, you know, they've tested positive and it's still being shown? Has that seller who's tested positive, what are they doing about quarantine? Should we do a video showing and advise folks? We're doing video showings right now for 14 days. But have the discussion. There's no one thing. I cannot say that we would discipline a broker and say that it's a violation of license law not to disclose that someone in the property had COVID or had tested positive. But the better form would be to just disclose it, and then you have no worries.
And the best thing is to follow CDC guidelines and shut it down for 14 days or till the last 14 days after the last symptoms.
Right, because each property is different too, because I know in some properties you might be able to truly quarantine a person. You know, if you've got a mother-in-law in suite that that person is able to quarantine, and maybe you could somehow
show everything but that. Right. So maybe you would do a video showing, but you would do your best to protect everyone involved. Okay, let me add to that. If the seller has tested positive COVID, but they do not want to disclose that they have the virus, is that a material fact? No, but you know that there is COVID. What if the seller does not want to disclose that because it's their personal info?
If the seller doesn't want to disclose it, I would then advise what are you doing to protect other individuals? Is the seller not wanting to disclose but still wants to have showings? Then what are you doing to protect folks? Are we requiring masks and gloves? You know, I've had sellers who have been high risk, and so they are requiring masks and gloves by buyers. And are you honoring that? Are you saying that everyone should have masks and gloves?
Right.
Can you put a moratorium on showings for 14 days? You know, if the seller doesn't want to disclose, maybe, you know, take it off the market for 14 days.
Temporarily, yeah. And everyone would know anyway if it was temporary off the market 14 days. And someone said, I mean,
you could just say temporarily off the market. You don't have to say 14 days, you know.
And then we had one saying about HIPAA laws, but to me, if you're going to disclose it, you better have their agreement that they're okay with disclosing it.
Because, right. And HIPAA we're not subject to HIPAA laws. You know, we're not doctors, nurses who are holding medical records. So,
Correct.
and
right.
you said if a buyer asks, doesn't that make it a material fact? If a buyer asks, you're not to lie. But does it make it a material fact? You know, there is, it's by statute that infectious diseases are not necessarily material facts.
Right.
You know, back when HIV/AIDS was an issue, there was that question: is that a material fact?
Right. You'd have to
No,
have the seller's approval to release that
right.
information.
Yeah, and I mean, I think if a buyer is concerned about going into a property that there might be, you know, COVID positive, and then maybe they should put off showings for a while.
Right.
Or
Best case scenario, take it off the market.
right.
So,
Right.
all right, well, let's switch back. We were, of course, you know, I wouldn't say blessed, but one of those that were not as, you know, realtors for a while were not essential, also Durham and some in Charlotte. So if things, you know, possibly could get worse and we get shut down again and the governor, you know, changes his mind, and how do we go about listing a home without walking through it if we get put back in a lockdown situation?
So if you're listing a home and you're not able to tour it, then I would suggest double checking, you know, the information you've received. So you're not able to measure it. What's your,
Hard to
what are
notice
you basing
material
your
facts.
measures?
Yeah.
Right. What are you basing your measurements on? So disclose that when we say don't use tax records, right? So does the seller have some house plans? Does the seller have a prior appraisal? Can you rely on that and disclose how you've gotten that information? If you can still research things like permits and septic permits, septic permits, etc. That's all online in many places. So you can still do some of your research.
Wonderful. Just disclose. You could not be there in person. As
Right.
always, disclose.
Yeah.
All right, one more question, unless more come available. Because there's such a lack of inventory, one of the question we're receiving is, are escalation clauses legal? And if so, how should an agent handle it?
So escalation clauses are not illegal in North Carolina. We don't recommend them, but they are not illegal. So it's kind of hard to tell you how to do something we don't recommend you do. But just remember that there is a rule that prohibits shopping of offers. So if someone wants to use an escalation clause and the buyer using the escalation clause wants to see that other contract to prove that, you know, the price that they're paying 1,000 over actually exists, that offer actually exists, then you need that other buyer's acceptance or approval, permission, thank you, to show that contract. And so how are you going to do that? You know, if you want to do that, I would suggest sitting down with an attorney to draft an escalation clause that does not lead the broker to violating license law.
Wonderful. All right, last chance. Any other questions? Well, here we go. If an investor wants to make an offer on a rental property where a rental has a lease, are the eviction processes because of COVID changing the eviction process? And how can our agents get that?
I'm trying to think. I think there was just recently an executive order about evictions. And if you go to our website, you can actually, in our COVID banner, you can click on that and find additional information about COVID, including the governor's executive orders. So there's a link to that. I'm a little confused about, so if an investor wants to make an offer on a rental property where a renter has a lease, then there's a lease, and they're purchasing subject to that lease.
Right.
So if they're trying to evict them,
Maybe if they're
Okay.
not paying, maybe if they
right,
stop
if they're
paying.
not paying, then there's definitely a bar on that. So, but
There you go, month-to-month lease.
a month-to-month lease.
Well, there's
So-
still hard to evict when there's the,
Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm just clicking on here to see if the governor's order, the recent order affects that. But there's, I think they do need to understand that they might not be able to evict for some time, even for non-payment of rent.
That's
Whether
my
they own it
understanding.
now or they're thinking about buying it, they might be buying with a squatter for a while.
as a thing I learned in one of my CE classes, cash for keys, pay to get them out. Sometimes helps.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but we have a
on
link
a-
to all the executive orders, and you can search, and usually with each executive order, they've done a frequently asked questions, which is helpful too.
all right. And here's one, we'll just go with this as the last one. Our North Carolina contract has a 14-day extension built in. Should additional time be needed for final loan approval? I have recently seen a seller invoke that 14-day extension because their apartment they are moving into was not ready yet. This caused the buyer to incur quite a bit of expenses.
I have seen that complaint, not an official complaint to us, but I have seen that issue before where it's because that 14-day extension or leeway, if you will, it's not so much an extension, is for both parties. And I have seen sellers using that they've got a delay on their end, but it's for both parties, unfortunately.
Okay.
Uh,
All right.
the
Last.
I was just going to throw in there, Ray, though, again, that's the North Carolina Association of Realtors contract. So if you're suggesting a change, certainly email one of the Forms Committee members, and it can certainly be discussed at the Forms Committee meetings.
And as North Carolina Realtors and as Greensboro Realtors Association, I also heard the commissioners have a new racial equality statement. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes. When we had the protests, the marchers, the George Floyd death, it came to a head, and we had folks questioning us about where the commission stands, on these issues. And we did issue a statement signed by our then chair, Jeff Mallarney, about, the commission does stand for racial equity, racial equality, fair housing. And we did want to hear if folks were having issues related to racial equity in housing, real estate transactions. So we did issue that statement.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, as I was saying, I'm a big fan of the commission, and I know everyone gets scared because y'all are known as the brown envelope people, which scares people. And I wanted to tell a story of mine without divulging too much information. First, the thing I've always heard is if you haven't received a brown envelope, that just means you haven't been in the business long enough. And second, I received one, and of course, Miss Moody was there to help me, because of course I still, new as a bick, got nervous, got scared, and I was, a payment hadn't been done, and so I researched, looked it all up and everything, and Charlie was very helpful to me, and of course, I was very blessed to find out that we had mailed the check. It was just to the I think it was the seller's wrong address. They gave a wrong address. And so it was an easy fix, but I was just thankful. She was, on the other hand, always there to help. So I want to, thank you and thank the commissioners. I'm a big fan. I know you're going to miss Seth from the Realtors.
Yes,
but I just want to make sure you take care of some friends of mine Anthony, you know, who's going to need some help, and Sandra O'Connor, who's wonderful. She's also from Greensboro. So
Yes, and she is our chair now, and we love her. And yes, I would say we are here to help. I don't want to take away licenses, and I have prosecuted some folks who have been gone on to, you know, contact me whenever they have a question. I'm kind of their attorney, you know. Call us when you have a problem. Call us before you have a problem. Call us if you have a question. That's what our information officers are there for. We want you to succeed.
well, I do appreciate your time. I want to thank you. And we always, for our speakers, give a book to our adopted school, Hunter Elementary. And we want to do that in your honor, in your name, The Wonderful Things We Will Be by Emily Winfred Martin. So
that's wonderful. Thank
I
you.
want to thank you. And it's an honor for me because I'm a huge fan of everyone in that office. Y'all do great work there. I'm very, very proud, and proud Sandra is the commissioner. So, but thank you so much for being with us. Anything else before you leave?
Nothing else. Thank you so much for having me.
Wonderful. You're more than welcome anytime. Greensboro loves you.
Have great holidays, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Now, special announcements. We're going to be moving on. We're going to first talk about our growth zone with Peter. Take it away, Mr. Peter Johnson.
Thanks, Ray. Okay, so I'm going to try to keep this short and sweet for everyone, and bear with me as I read my notes. The GRRA staff and board of directors decided to make a change to our AMS provider earlier this year. AMS is the official terminology for what is our membership database system. This month, we will be moving from our current provider to the growth zone system. From a member perspective, much of this change will be seamless. Once the transition is complete, however, members will be able to take advantage of some new features. Some of these new features include the ability to store a credit card within the system, the ability to auto apply payments to those stored credit cards, one-page registration forms, that's for Kathy Haynes specifically, registration and bill lookup via email. And what this means is if your email address matches what we have on file, you can register for events and quickly pay your bills without the need for additional credentials like a password. The Member Hub, which is a new online portal where agents can easily access closed invoices, past event registration, committee documents, and more in a much more user-friendly format than our current member portal. As members learn the new options available to them, we will be turning on additional functionality with the goal of trying to make any process at GRRA as frictionless as possible. Our staff is excited about the new growth zone system and the abilities that it has for both us internally and for the membership. For anyone with questions about the new system, please feel free to reach out to me after the meeting.
Peter, you didn't want to give out your cell phone? And remember, you can text him at GRRA. So for all questions. All right, guys, next we're going to talk about our continuing education requirements with Sharon. Sharon, you ready? Miss Gray, I should say.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Sharon Gray. I'm the Member Services Manager here at the association, and I'd like to take a few minutes today to talk about the continuing ed program that we offer here. We're still very proud that we're able to offer the continuing ed classes at no additional cost to our primary and our secondary members. One of the things that we've had to do because of COVID is to convert our platform to the Zoom platform. We are offering virtual classes. But because the classes are virtual, we need to remind everyone that you need to treat the classes the same as you would an in-person class. So there are some guidelines that you do need to adhere to. One of which is that you need to sign in on time. There is a 15-minute window, but that window does start as soon as the instructor announces that they are ready for the class to start. You have 20 minutes that you can use during the class time, but it cannot be used at the beginning or the end of the class. You can use it for your breaks that you may need to go out, that you need to discuss if you have contracts. Just remember that when you come back into the class, you do need to log back in. Now, one of the things that we're asking for you to do when you log into the Zoom wait room is to enter your last name, your first name, along with your license number. Now, we will verify that information prior to allowing you to come into the class. All agents are required to register at least 36 hours before the class date. Now, as the CE coordinator, I am responsible for sending out the email notification to you that will include the Zoom link. It will include the course manual URL and any passwords that you will need at that time in order to register. Now, this is a non-negotiable part of the classes that we're asking that you must have a camera-ready device. Again, you must have a camera-ready device. And that device cannot be your picture. It has to be you, because I need to know that that's you that's actually attending the class. To give you a good example, you can't actually like lie down and watch the class and hear it. I have to know that you're there participating in the class, just as if it's an in-person class. Also, prior to the class, please check to make sure that your devices are operational. I will also include the tech helpline so that you can give them a call to check your devices, because unfortunately, virtual classes do require hands-on. It's a little bit more intensive than just the regular check-in. So the staff won't be as available for you. So please call prior to the class date. Also, we are also asking that you keep your devices stationary as well, because the movement of your devices is very distracting to the instructors. I will also check your information against the Zoom check-in list prior to submitting your information to the Real Estate Commission. We are required to make sure that we have everything reported within 7 days of attendance, and we do try and report your classes in less time than that. We will also send out your CE certificates via email 3 to 5 days after you attend the class. And we will also, if you have any problems, you can also give us a call or send me an email, and I will check everything that we've sent over to the Real Estate Commission. Now, if you have any questions, please give me a call. There's one other thing. When you're checking your devices, please make sure you put your names on it, because when you have iPhone John, I could have 20 iPhone Johns in the class and I won't know who that is. So please update your names as much as possible. Now, there's one other thing that I would like to talk about, and that's Under the Bridge. Normally, you guys know that we have an event called the End of Summer Bash, and which is a fundraiser for the homeless event that we do under the bridge. Unfortunately, due to COVID, we were not able to hold that event this year, but the homeless is still there. We are still trying to provide to them. And one of the things that we're doing on November the 21st, and it's going to be the weekend this time before Thanksgiving, we are still offering meals to the homeless, but they will be box lunches. We will not need nearly as many people as we have had in the past, but we are still offering that, and you'll see that information that is listed out on our website. And also, if you would like to donate, you can send a check to us to the Greensboro Regional Realtors Foundation, and we are more than happy to accept that. And if you have any questions, please give me a call, and I'll be glad to answer any questions that you have. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you, thank you. And remember, Under the Bridge is our great thing we do for the homeless. We gather, we give out usually plates of food and give that to the homeless. This year it's going to be box lunches. So please, please, if you can, donate your time or effort, or, if you can donate, money. So please be a part of that. Next, we're going to talk about RPAC with Marvette, how great she did. So incredible job, Marvette. Home run.
Thanks, Ray. GRRA is having a great RPAC investment year. Special thanks to my incredible teammates, our GRRA Board of Directors, Ray Alexander, Kathy Carpenter, Heather Dobson, Hilbert Michael, William Stephen Allen, Michael Carter, Kimberly Pruitt, Scott Thompson, Kristen Ashley, Marcy Jones, Brian Shackelford, Jim Doward, Bob Lewis, H.R. Gallimore, Jan Epps Dawson, Chris Caton, Lindy Pope, Mary Beth Powell, Sophia Chris, and Stephanie Mabe. Thank you for your diligence and unwavering motivation. To our exceptional, yes, exceptional GRRA staff, Mike Barr, Barbara Gilliland, Peter Johnston, Sharon Gray, Joel Gillison, Paige Stroud, Joe Borlick, and Chelsea McCaleb. As always, your unconditional support is immeasurable. Let's not forget the GRRA members. The members of this association are absolutely awesome. GRRA Board of Directors called and you answered. Thanks for your RPAC investment and commitment to advocacy. Thanks for supporting private property rights, flood insurance, our community, our industry, and the clients we so humbly serve. That's who we are. As a reminder, GRRA is still accepting RPAC investments through Tuesday, December 1st. If you have not made your 2020 RPAC investment, you are encouraged to make an initial investment of $15 or more. Just go to ncrealtors.org, select Action Center, then select Invest, and or you can call Barbara Gilliland at GRRA 336-854-8668. I should know that. 5868 336-854-5868. I should know that number by heart.
You've called it enough.
I know. The 2020 reverse raffle results. We sold 250 reverse raffle tickets and raffled approximately $8,000 in prizes. All members who purchased tickets will receive a list of all prizes, tickets drawn, and winners. Now, I will now announce the last 4 prizes and the last 4 ticket winners drawn. The 4th prize was a $100 Amazon gift card. And the winner, Carly Mann.
Woo!
Congratulations, Carly. Number 3, Apple AirPods. And the winner, Marvette Artis. Number 2, Series 3 Apple Watch. And the winner, Lolita Malave. Number 1, a $500 Visa gift card. And the winner, Rick Westover. Congratulations and thanks again to everyone for your continued support and investment in RPAC. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you, Marvette. Thank you again for knocking it out of the park. What a great year. You've done a great job and we're so proud of you.
Couldn't have done it without a great team though, Ray.
So, woo. Strong goals. Don't ever question Marvette, Mike. Don't ever question her. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And Rick Westover, woo, Forms guy. He definitely deserves $500. So for the year he's had. All right, moving on. Coming up events, November 4th, all day CCIM and RCACE class pickup and elective with wonderful lady Cindy Chandler. November 5th, CCIM and RCA Gin Up, 8:30 to 12:30 with Cindy Chandler also. November 19th, all day CE classes, pickup elective with Darren Dunsweiler. And if you didn't notice, because I love joking with people, Sharon was making sure y'all know to put on your camera, and then she didn't even turn on hers. So who knew? November 21st, what she did talk about that's near and dear to us, it's the giving. under the bridge to feed the homeless. So be there. And remember, November 26th and 27th, GRRA will be closed for Thanksgiving. Special announcement, GRRA billing emailed and posted to all members' accounts on November 15th, 2020. Yes, it's that time of year. So before we say goodbye, I want to once again thank Scott Dampler and bring him up, Mr. Clemson football. If y'all didn't know that, with me, you will. So he played, I think at least one play, but he played Clemson football. Scott, you there? Maybe. Unmute yourself if you are. Peter, is there any way to help him?
I mean, I can unmute.
Here we
him.
go. Let's see if you can.
He
There
found,
we go.
Hey.
there we go, Mr. Clemson.
Well, it's nothing like being out in the field. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, my Tigers are struggling a little bit last weekend, but we always support our Tigers out in the field. It's a beautiful day to be out doing inspections today. Housemaster, property inspections done right. We appreciate all that agents do for us. I'm out in the field doing inspection today. Had to do an inspection, radon, well function test, water testing, and now I'm at another property doing the same. But I want to give back to the association and say thank you to all the agents that support us. So we have a few of these gift cards to give away today. So if agents would like, text me to my phone number, 336-470-3883, 336-470-3883. Your name and number will put you in a drawing for these gas gift cards. But there's going to be a question, and I know there'll be a lot of text, so we got to drill down to who can win, right? But so I'm doing a well function test. Is that a requirement for a home inspector to test well function equipment on the job site? Is that a requirement for a home inspector to test well function equipment on a job site? Very important that people have water. They want to have clean water. They want to have enough to take showers. They want to have enough in the house that when one person's taking a shower, we can wash dishes and wash the car. So it's important as a home inspector to do that. But as we are in neighborhoods that have wells, is it important and is it required for a home inspector to do a well function test? If it is, we'll do it with the inspection. And if it's not, some of us will do it as an ancillary service. So we are happy to do that. Again, Housemaster, property inspections done right. Text us. I got some gift cards to give away. We'll follow up later in the week with the winners and we'll contact you directly. Thank y'all so much. Ray, thank you, buddy.
Thank you, Scott.
Go Tigers.
Thank you so much for being a part and
You're
always
welcome,
being
man.
there for us.
You're welcome.
So, all right, guys, that concludes our first Tuesday. So looking forward to seeing y'all first Tuesday in December. I want to thank everybody. Thank Scott again for sponsoring our meeting. Thank the North Carolina Real Estate Commission for speaking to us. And always the staff, Peter, Mike, and everyone else at the staff of GRRA. So thank you very much, and y'all have a great day.